This is how the pattern says to make the boots. So it would be open on the bottom with an elastic on the bottom. I have made boots like that before, and it's really hard to keep that on the shoe appropriately. We wound up using duct tape to hold it to the shoe. So what I did is, here's the original pattern, and it's not going to be left open. I took a tracing of the person's foot to this line here, and then I cut out them a little bit bigger, and I am actually going to sew a bottom on. There's no reason for this to have it be completely open. Here's how I pin. This is the front and this is the back, so I want to make sure I pin this to the very front and pin the back to the very back. Of course, whenever we have an area with a seam, we always open up the seam and pin that seam open. That way it disperses the thickness of the fabric. Although this fabric is pretty easy, it's fleece, it's pretty easy to sew over. Okay, I got the front pinned. Now we need to find the center back of the heel, and okay, and then I like to find, just so I have everything even, I like to find the center between the two, between the front and the back. Now the fabric is pretty stretchy, so, but actually this cut looks like it's going to fit just perfect. And even if this were bigger or smaller, depending on the size foot you're making, because of the way the seams come together, you can stretch this top part easy enough to just ease it. I just like to pin it so that it's nice and even all the way around. So it'll make a boot, and this is the bottom of the sole. And then trying to make sure the fabric stays flat and I'm not putting any folds. Oh, I have the magnet right here, which is so cool. I can just take my pin and just throw it. Okay, so this is going to be turned inside out. That means that we have a curve. We have curves all the way around, so we need to go around and we need to clip the curve. The tighter the curve, the closer I cut it. When it's not so much of a curve, I just spread it out to maybe an inch. But around the smaller part of the curve, I put the cuts a little closer together, like about a ½ inch. It is always helpful to cut corners and clip curves. Just makes the garment, when you turn it right side out, it always makes it nicer. The splits help them to overlap. And so it will give you a smoother edge. I'll just turn it right side out and you'll be able to see that. It just makes your seam so nice. I mean, I don't have any wrinkles or folds in the fabric. It fits really good. And I haven't even pressed this yet. That's why it's important to do that. Now, I think I left a little extra space in the toe. I'm going to stuff it. I'm going to do what I did with the hands, and I'm going to try to make it look like lion paw. Now this is also a curve, so we need to cut that as well, so that it will open up like it's supposed to, so we don't have any unusual wrinkles when it's turned the opposite way. Now to finish off the boot, I'm going to use this 1-inch wide single fold bias tape. It's easier to work with it inside because it's easier to sew on the inside of something. So I've got it inside out, right sides together. We're going to unfold one flap and we're going to pin this to the edge, putting the right sides together. Right now I've got the thing inside out, so this is the right side, which is now the inside. We're just going to pin this all the way around with this one edge folded up, and I'm going to sew right on that fold line. It's just much easier to sew inside of a loop, like an armhole, a leg hole, in this case a boot hole, inside of a sleeve. It's always better to work on the inside rather than try to sew on the outside, because if you're sewing on the outside of something, you've got to worry about what's underneath and gets in the way. But this way you can see what you're doing because you always have the other side up on top. And so that's just smarter. Okay, now we've come to the place where we met the other side. So we want to cut it a little bit longer. I want to leave enough space so I can fold over this edge. Pin that down. And what that's going to do is going to leave a slot right there so that I can put an elastic. Whoops, I forgot something. I need to fold this edge over too. At the beginning, I need to fold that over just a little bit. Could be 1/4 inch or 3/8 of an inch, because I don't want any raw edges. I want them nice and finished. And then we fold over this side. That will leave a slot for us to put an elastic in. Okay, we are ready to sew this on. See how I can always keep the part that I'm sewing flat and I keep the rest of it out of the way? I'm sewing from the inside. I don't have one of those new machines that you can just take off the edge and have a little section here where you can just slip it on over. So this is what you do when you don't have that extra gadget. An old sewing machine. I much prefer old machines because they're made with metal parts and they last longer. My last machine lasted me 25 years and I used it a lot. Okay, I'm going to take out my pins, and I'll show you how this is going to make a nice little casing to put an elastic in. When we put the elastic in, we want to make sure that it has, okay, now I'm going to turn it right side out, and at the moment this trim looks like it's on the outside, but see, I'm going to fold it down on the inside. And I don't unfold this edge. I keep that edge folded like it is. And I just pin this down like that, and that'll give me a nice finished edge. And the elastic will go inside that casing. Oh, and I wanted to mention, by putting that bottom on, that's actually faster, less work than doing it the way the book said to do it. Because with this, you have to finish off the edge and add the elastic, and that's a lot of pinning. I probably did a lot less pinning sticking the bottom on. So, I mean, I always look for the easy way to do stuff. You know, if anything can make what I do easier, that's the route I'm going to take. Some things there are no shortcuts, but okay, it's all pinned, ready to sew. I like to sew on the side where I can actually see. Oh, gotta make sure this thread's long, otherwise it'll pull out. I like to sew again on the inside so I can keep this out of my way. Just be careful the little pins don't poke you. Yes, I sew over needles all the time. Just make sure the heads are not going to be where I'm going to sew over. The heads will create a problem. And I don't have really big pins. There is an opening right there. The elastic will go into that slot right there. So this little seam just made a casing where the elastic will fit inside. Now the elastic, you cut it 1 inch larger than the width of, in this case, an ankle. It could be an arm, a wrist, whatever is going to be. Okay, so there you have a boot. Right now it's just a simple boot. I don't have any toes on yet. We have a nice finished edge inside. We're ready to put the elastic in. Another thing that I found very useful is always having an ironing board handy when I'm sewing, because it really does make a difference. Your pattern will always tell you to press the seams open. At first I used to think when I started to sew, I thought, oh, that's annoying to have to constantly iron throughout your sewing process. But I've since learned that that actually makes everything fit together so much nicer. By ironing that, it's going to make this front seam look so much better, the way that it looks. When I'm sewing, I always have my ironing board close by my sewing area. Iron this seam, but we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to press that open because that is just going to be folded on the inside. We have a 1/2 inch elastic and we have a 1 inch seam binding, but because this is attached to that, it's not sewn all the way through. You actually have from this stitch all the way to the top, and the elastic is going to fit right in there, and there's plenty of room. So if I want to make this casing just a little bit smaller, I could actually go in here and put a top stitch around the very top, and I still have plenty of room to do it. I think I will, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in the ditch between this rolled top and that seam there, just to give it a top stitch. So I'll have 2 rows of stitching instead of 1. I could leave it like this, but I prefer to have a little edge on the top, and that just keeps the elastic downward because it's got more than enough room. Because even if I show you, it's got plenty of room for that elastic to fit in there. It will kind of prevent the top from rolling. I just like the way that looks, having 2 rows of stitches, and the elastic will be between the 2 rows. And there's still a whole inch, so I just need to measure and cut the elastic. We add an extra inch for the overlap. Here's a tool that I use to pull the elastic through a casing. I just clip it. It's got teeth right here, so I clip it on and slide this little bar down that holds it tight, and that way I've got this long end with a nice round smooth end, and that will make it very easy for me to slide this elastic in. The books tell you to use safety pins, or the pattern instruction tells you to use the safety pin, but I like this tool much better. And I want to watch that I don't pull the whole thing in. I'll show you how I'm going to prevent it from falling all the way in. Before I get too far, I am going to use a safety pin because sometimes you pull too much because the area is probably bigger than the elastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pin the outside there so I don't accidentally pull it all the way through. So I don't have to worry about losing the elastic and trying to get it back out and having to redo it again. This little tool is very helpful. Oh man, I thought I was recording and I was not. I missed that.